I really got a kick out of Stugotz tweeting that he's going to be tweeting more about 790 over the coming days. I'm like, you're not going to be tweeting about that.
Well, this I wanted to talk about this, and there hasn't been time in the last week or so. It doesn't seem like there's been time, but I don't know how you guys experience the folding of 790 because we've been gone from there so long, and it feels like we've grieved 4 different things as it relates to 790. So it became a total anticlimax for me to have it just officially end, even though I was surprised, even though I thought it was already dead in my mind, that it stirred something. It wasn't quite an empty lack of feeling to see after 18 years that 790 The Ticket, original AM radio station founded by Stugotz and an assortment of benefactors, ended up folding after 18 years. We beat the incumbent. But what was your experience with it? You're all 790 guys.
People asked me if I was sad about it, and I wasn't as sad as I thought I would be for a couple of reasons. One, super proud of what we accomplished and built there, and then secondly, and I'm serious about this, it probably lasted 17 years longer than I thought it was going to last. And for that, I am thankful, and listen, I
don't think I believe you. I don't think you guys believe Stugotz on that it lasted. He thought it was going to last.
I was part of the negotiations, Dan. Like our 3-year thing was up, our lease, and Joel didn't want to do it anymore. And thank you to Joel for starting the radio station, seriously, because without him, I'm not certain if you and I ever connect, if we have this great show that we've been doing for a long time. But I was part of that negotiation, and Dennis Collins wasn't sure what he was going to do. He was the general manager of 790 at the time. We didn't own it. We leased it.
He was the GM of the cluster that 790 was leasing their signal from.
Right. Light FM and forget the other station.
At the time, Lincoln Financial Media.
And so, I wasn't certain what he was going to do. He wasn't certain what he was going to do with the radio station, and he decided because he liked the lineup, he saw that we could make money with that lineup with the proper sales staff, and he kept that format and that lineup basically intact for a very long time, and so I am thankful for that.
It was the history of South Florida sports radio that challengers would come and go, challengers to 560. They would maybe at most put together a year run, and then 560 would just do away with the competition as they always did. 790 stuck around for a very long time. 790 won the ratings wars, the last true ratings wars with the diaries, and then the change and evolution into pagers.
And people don't understand how hard it is in this medium or mediums like it. Once you've established comfort, intimacy, and familiarity, people tend to hang on to the habit. So beating an incumbent is really hard. And we did it fairly quickly. It happened within a couple of years. That's one of the reasons Dennis Collins decided to continue with it as a sports station. The reason I was calling bullshit on you is when you said it lasted 17 years longer than I thought it would, is that it lasted 18 years. We've been saying 20 around here,
right,
but it's 18 years. And so I thought you didn't get into it thinking it was going to last a year.
I was nervous after the first year. Yeah. I can tell you that. I was.
History would suggest that most of them just last a year.
Right.
But Stugotz is going to be nervous after a year because any grift he's running that's still up after a year, he's going to be surprised. You had tried a lot of different things like this that didn't have the backing that this one did.
You've been with a lot of different startups that challenged QAM after you left.
I was at 940 for a little bit. I don't know if they ever really thought they were going to challenge WQIM. I went into with the mentality with 790 of not just challenging WQIM, of overtaking WQIM, and I think in many ways we did. There were some mistakes that I made along the way that I regret until this day. Mistakes that I think our owner made that he probably, in private moments, regrets as well. In terms of how much money we spent early on. We spent a ton of money. And
Tony's dad was one of the competitors. Tony's dad.
Yes, he was.
Tony can tell us the story of his father, who I don't think Whittingham has any knowledge of. But his father, I would describe his father, Tony. Is it unfair to say? I don't want to make him a total Stugotz because that is. But
what's wrong with that?
But Hispanic Stugotz radio guy who was trying to make it. He was trying to do some of the same things Orlando Alzagari was trying to do.
Yeah, I think that there was an interesting moment in the early, let's say late 90s, early 2000s when 790 came on the scene and 560 was obviously a colossal success where there was an avenue for, let's say, new sports talk. And I feel like 790, 1700 The Fan, which is what my dad started at the time, had a lot of those faces. And Dan, I know that you were in negotiations to be part of that prior to 790. So it's just a lot of stuff that happened throughout time, but obviously the ultimate elixir is money, right? And when you run out of money, it's hard to keep things going. So I think that was probably the demise of 1700 more so than anything else, was there wasn't somebody writing a massive check at the end of every
Roy, put it on the poll, please, at LeBatardShow. Is money the greatest elixir? At LeBatardShow.
1700 did some good things. It introduced Sedano to the local audience. But to me, 790 kind of... My association with 790 kind of went away when the Odyssey folks really took over and started shaping that in their own image. And obviously, once the local hour was gone, I didn't really feel connected. My connection point was the people that were there. And I guess the final nail in the coffin was when they let Zaslow go, who was one of the original 790 hires. They did so in a crude fashion, I felt. But
it was crude. It was crude. And that is what got stirred for me. That's what got stirred for me when it seemed 790 was dead to me because of some of the stuff that happened with the local hour at the end that I found disrespectful. But what they did to Zaz was horrifying. What they did to they did to Zaslow after 18 years of service, calling him in and not giving him any explanations, is just the awful part of this awful radio business. Like that they would just change stations and furthermore go symbolically hard on Spanish radio, which Spanish radio, if you think this is catering to the market because you're trying to put together something that is Hispanic culturally, that's not what Spanish radio in this market is. Spanish radio in this market is right-wing, ungoverned radio.
I think that's what they're kind of going for, conservative Spanish talk radio, because there's a pretty wide lane for that. So it probably makes all the business sense in the world. You could see this one coming. They were simulcasting a lot of their shows already with Zaslow out of the way. It was only a matter of time. In fact, the explanation that Zaslow should have got was, we're consolidating both stations, and don't worry, we'll tell the Miami Heat for you. Things that should have been a nice little human touch with regards to the Zaslow thing. But it's a
they
damn
should have
shame.
said it to him, because I think Zaslow had an idea once.
790 law. I don't know how they come to the decision on keeping 560 over 790. Obviously, a little part of my ego is like, why aren't they keeping 790? I think 560 is a better signal. Stugotz, you could probably speak to that. And
I think 790 actually
Really?
is the better signal.
well,
yes,
560 is a legacy station, even
Yeah.
though they inexplicably named it the Joe for 2 years. It's got a brand down
It's
here.
no longer the Joe?
No, it's been the Cube
No.
for a little bit.
They
now.
went back. They
Yeah.
changed
The
it
Joe
from the
was
Joe.
great,
It's a
yeah.
terrible name, like a truly
It's
terrible
awesome.
name.
They rebranded back to WQAM because it is a heritage station. I think they're celebrating a 30th anniversary going on right now. It's a station that matters, but I think the overall picture of it is that I think Stugotz would partially, or I imagine massively, was business motivated, but there was also a sort of content motivation behind wanting to field a competitor to WQAM. It had a certain sound, it had a certain style, and there was room for something new to be created, and I think you guys deserve a massive amount of credit for creating that new sound, which in some ways is the sound of Miami sports radio now, but that was when people competed on the basis of content. I don't think that exists anymore. That era of radio is over, where you look at the competitor and go, we can beat them not financially or by running a radio station on thinner margins so we make more money. No, we're trying to beat them with the content that we make. In some ways, the entire radio industry is sort of brain dead in that respect. They're not interested in making content anymore. It's about, how do we run this on the thinnest margins possible? How do we keep our stock price at a reasonable place, which most radio companies do not have good stock prices, and you're trying to run hundreds of radio stations at as small amount of cost as possible, and that's sort of what's happening.
The content, the actual content, the quality control that goes into it on the list of priorities is pretty low. I mean, I would venture to say real estate is more important to these mega media conglomerates. The real estate that these studios actually occupy or more of a sound investment.
The Miami Herald would still exist if they had never sold that property on the bay, if they had just kept it.
That's what had the value.
But they made a real estate play.
I'm thrilled that I had that experience because I don't think maybe outside of maybe major markets like New York, I know that people still write about radio wars, but it seems like a dated concept to many in our audience. But I'm happy that early in my career I got a taste of that in true competition and making content decisions that you thought would put you over. It was of a time. It was of a time, and now it's gone, and I sound like such a boomer talking about it, I guess. I mean, we're talking about an AM radio signal. I don't know the last time you actually put that signal on. I tried to hear a Bengals-Dolphins broadcast, and the microphones would pick up the crowd. It's all mono frequency. It's like impossible to listen to, really, when you're just... It's difficult to listen to because you're listening to podcast quality for all your content right now.
Is that a signal thing or a cephalo thing?
Well, it's a cephalo thing.
Well, no, Jimmy.
Come on.
I know
What
Jimmy.
happened?
I mean, it's well known why Jimmy sounds
Like the
totally.
guy.
He wasn't
sounds like
talking about cephalo. He was talking about the signal.
Yeah, there are times that Jimmy tries to talk over the action, and you can't hear Jimmy's cephalo because he's drowned out because it's a mono frequency. Everything's on the same line, and that's just the realities of AM signals, which is, again, very much of a time. Think about how many mediums were removed from AM right now.
AM shouldn't exist anymore. I'm going to say it. AM radio should not exist.
But I think you still get...
I can put together with a $99 microphone on Amazon and my computer a better sounding production than AM radio. It's why? It's wasted. You're spending thousands of dollars on equipment to put together a radio broadcast, and it sounds like hell.
You ask why, and the answer to your question is there is still a demo that has money, that is older, that is deals in habit and familiarity, and that's how they listen to things. And I suspect we lost some people in the transfer, even though our numbers are great. I would suspect that we lost some people based on just that we switched formats, went to a different place, and some people are like, look, I love that thing, but not enough to do so much as to go with it.
Are you saying for $99 you could sound better than a 50,000 watt radio station?
Correct.
You can sound better talking into your phone right now.
What?
I want to talk to Billy and Roy about this. The Codys are out sick, but how did you guys feel as Billy? I don't know how soon you started at 790 after it started. Roy was going to remotes back then at the very beginning. I don't know, Roy, how long before you were employed by 790?
Probably about a year before I was employed. I was going to remotes. And I saw this news coming. I just didn't see how quickly it was going to come.
Wow.
And
I actually, I think
you tell us?
I think it's been rather late. I was stunned it didn't happen sooner.
But that's how it happens in radio, from one day to the next,
Same.
or one Thursday to one Monday.
But to Chris's point, they were owned by the same ownership group for quite some time.
3 years.
And it kind of felt like they were turning the wheels since they first got together under the same umbrella. And yet, for 3 years, 790 kept chugging along. And now they finally put this in there. And maybe it's because that lane of Spanish conservative radio opened up that they decided to finally pull the trigger.
To be honest with you, I mean, I was sad to hear, obviously, because I grew up listening to it and I worked there for, a number of years. But, I mean, it's been kind of a while where there hasn't been original stuff on there anyways. I think there was, gambling on there for some time. Like, a couple weeks ago, I was actually curious, and I was like, I wonder if it's still labeled the ticket or if they change the name or whatever. So, I mean, it's sad, but I think the saddest part about it is for the people down here that are in the industry or that aspire to get into the industry. And it's kind of been the case for a while. There's no competition, right? Because there's the two stations that were owned by the one company. So even if you were trying to get in, there's no competition. So, I mean, it's not good for people trying to get into the industry. It's not good for the people in the industry because the lack of competition, kind of, you get paid whatever it is that they want to pay you, and there's no threat to go anywhere else within
no
the
leverage.
industry. There's no... Yeah. I mean, and obviously I'm saying that selfishly from someone within the industry, but it's a sad day for people who want to get in there. I mean, at every level, hosts, producers, engineers, interns. There's now half the opportunity. Not that there was all that opportunity anyways, because they had gone to a lot of stuff that, wasn't being done out of that studio anyways. But I mean, I wonder if there's a lane. Honestly, my first thought was, I wonder if Stugotz is not going to try to start another radio station.
He called me immediately.
Yeah.
I
He called me immediately.
I did think
I wanted to buy 790.
as soon as it went off, I thought immediately, I go, man, I wonder if he's going to get that itch again and try to start
No, he got it.
something
The
new.
itch
I
came.
did.
The
Yep.
itch
Yeah.
came. But
He's
at
a proud
this-
owner of a Spanish conservative news station.
Congratulations, Stugotz.
I did explain that part to him, that it was being run by others. But
Is there an FM signal you can invest in, or?
Billy's Billy's point is an interesting one because we both got into media in a very traditional fashion, interning at a radio station, doing the climb. Now, if you want to get into media, I think there's
Your parents have to own a company.
Yeah, I think that there's a small minority that actually try that traditional way. Now all you got to do is set up your own pod equipment that you got from Amazon.
It's easier.
Do a cell phone video, and hopefully one of your things take off.
It's
But-
easier, but it's harder.
Just 98% of podcasts don't have 5,000 listeners. Like it's easy to do it. It's hard to get audience. It is a saturated market.
Dan, I'm saying it's easier to create your personality and get your reps in as opposed to when I was growing up and you would have to travel, I did at least, 90 minutes to a studio in Connecticut just to get studio time so I could put tapes together and try to impress some program director, in Miami.
But you can.
So
you can
in
find
that
a
regard,
job.
it's easier.
You can find
Yes.
a job though, a job that paid. I feel terrible. Like the entry level has been terrible since I started. Actually, Stugotz brought me to do his then morning show at the time. I was making $8.25 an hour.
Awful industry. It's hard for me to explain to people how awful an industry it is.
It's just like the path towards a decent salary is incredibly
I'm surprised you
difficult.
got paid.
I did
Surprised it was that high. I didn't start at that. Jeez,
Me too.
Louise.
I did 6 months without a check.
Whittingham, you had it easy. You had it easier because
I
you
was
came
an intern
later.
at that station for 2 years.
I did
before
6 months without a check after I got formally hired. I did about a year and a half without a check prior to getting hired, and then I went 6 months without a check.
We were the number one station in the market when the owner sat me down at the Caddyshack Country Club and asked me to work totally for free.
Oh, boy.
And I'm like, how does that work? Well, it would be a good thing to do. Well, but yeah,
For who?
I mean,
Fast forward 17 years later, you did that.
that's right. What are you guys proudest of?
If you do try to sample, I know it's been a long time for many in this room, but if you do sample local radio right now, I think our influence is undeniable. Hell, one of our former executive producers has one of the biggest shows in the market, if not the biggest show, and Mark Hochman, Brendan Tobin, was brought up through the system. And if you listen back to it, there's, especially with like the local songs and stuff, there's a lot of homages to the style that we invented. I do think that 790, the local sports talk was very conventional. It was very alpha male, 560. We talked about this when Hank Goldberg passed away. Now Miami Sports Radio understands that you can't just talk sports. You have to do stuff that's entertaining. So I'm most proud of how we just kind of changed the local genre down here in terms of content creators. They have to be entertaining. They have to be funny. They have to be self-deprecating. There's so much self-deprecation on the airwaves and local media personalities, and I think 790 kind of opened that pathway.
Beating QAM for the first time. That's when
That was
we
a good
became,
day.
Yeah, that was a good day.
Yeah.
That's when we became the new establishment down
Yep.
here. So yeah, that was the proudest moment for me.
Well, Stugotz was trying to build a radio station that was younger. Stugotz did what the sensibilities that you're talking about there, Mike. Now, he still took himself seriously at the beginning, but the sensibilities you're talking about there is he did want to do it differently than the old guard was doing
Well,
it.
Stugotz himself was very young.
Well-
Stugotz, how old were you when you started 790?
Let's see. We're going back 18. It's like 32, 31.
It's wild.
Yeah. Crazy. I was working at WQAM, and I was saying to myself, it's Mandich, it's Joe Rose, it's Defo, it's Hank Goldberg, that there has to be a younger sports radio station. And at that time, many cities were popping up a second sports radio station. So I thought, if we had the right people, I've told Dan this a million times, I would not have started that radio station unless he agreed to do afternoons and Joe Rose agreed to do mornings. And when they both agreed, I knew I had something. Joe Rose was not exactly what I was going for, but he was as important to the start of that radio station as any hire we made, just because with Joe Rose comes millions of dollars of billing. And that was important to us.
We had a press conference at the Orange Bowl.
Yeah.
A press conference at the Orange Bowl.
It's just so quaint.
Weird.
Like the whole notion that radio stations could command that kind of attention, that doesn't exist anymore.
It still does in New York a bit. I think Boston, and that's about it. You're right, though. I mean, you are.
The thing that Mike said, though, is the thing that I'm proudest of, because I just remember having so much fun with that fake pregame show. The idea that you could zig when everyone, like Stugotz's original idea is, I want to be different, I want to be younger, and then the sensibility of everything that happened after that was how much more differently can we do it? And yeah, when Mike says that, that's the first thing I think of, is that we gave so many people in this market permission to not have to do it where you're just always judging the athlete and you're talking for 2 hours. You're just repeating phone calls on, let's crush Xavier Howard because he got beat on the deep ball. You know what I mean? Like, that's not, you remember what it was. When you talk about quaint, tell them exactly what sports radio was when you started, because I don't feel like it's that in this market anymore.
It was a lot of gas bags with a ton of ego who were taking themselves very, very seriously. No one more so than Hank Goldberg. But listen, that's what sports radio was. It's, still to a degree today, what it is. But I am proud to see there are people who are all over the country now with big jobs. And I think Sedano still would have had a great career with or without $7.90 the ticket, but it certainly helped his career. You were already having a great career in your field.
You put together correctly.
Amber.
You put together one of the great local radio lineups of all time. Like
super. Minnie in the midday.
Boog Shambi was in your middays.
I always would call for trivia.
There was a time where we had Joe Rose, Sid, Boog, then us, and Sid Rosenberg, and that
Boog is now the Cubs play-by-play announcer.
Yeah, but Boog would have had success with or without the radio station.
Yeah, Boog was certainly climbing, but. Right. When you look back on it, it was an insane radio lineup, pound for pound, one of the best in the country.
I used to just leave it on all day. I was 14 years old, and I would just leave it on all day. I don't think there's anything where you go to that place and you just like it from start to finish.
Right.
And you could just pick one thing, and you could just leave it on. I used to listen to like Kevin Rogers until 10 p.m.
K-Rog.
I used to listen to I could just put that station on at any time of day, and I would really enjoy it. And that, I think, is unheard of. There's no content place where it's like, I'm just going to one place for the entire day, and that's all I'm listening to or watching. And it was incredible.
You have heard me say before that I think the greatest compliment we get from people is when they say that we drag them through some dark time and they felt like laughter and
100%.
medicine inside their head. They felt less lonely. I think that's the greatest compliment we get. But one of the ones that has been moving me recently, because you have to stay popular with young people. They dictate everything. Is like Whittingham is saying he used to listen for 24 hours. When someone comes up to me and is saying that their worldview was shaped by some of what it is that we were doing here, and I'm realizing that young people had this handed down from their parents. I'm realizing, you have no business being interested in the show, but it was just on in the car when you were driving around, when he was driving you to school, or when she was taking you somewhere. And so it's really moving to see that. What are you guys laughing about? K-Rod sound back there?
I'm listening to Kevin Rogers on Radio Row. Two iconic
classic.
I love the evening programming.
Yes.
I actually started on this show in the Dolphin Hour, the Kevin Rogers show with Brandon Guzio. And it was, I loved Guzio. There was it was great because it was kind of like that Eddie K type of, this is the action that's going on, very reactionary. But he had evenings, which is a bad shift to be at Radio Row. We spent far too much money sending everybody to Radio Row in the early days.
Not the only thing we spent far too much money on.
So there were two iconic bits of sound of Kevin Rogers working the graveyard shift over at Radio Row. The first one with Ray Lewis.
What else we got? Oh my God, Ray Lewis is here. Can we get Ray Lewis on the show before my tongue falls off? Ray freaking Lewis in the house. Wow. Hey, Ray, you got a couple minutes? Ray! Let's see. Whatever. Ray Lewis walks in and my tongue is bleeding. Wow.
That
how we did it.
That's a lonely shift in front of a table in some convention center.
Is that in Jacksonville?
It's 11
This
p.m.
might have been. I think this was the Detroit one.
Oh,
But there's no one doing anything there. All of the people who are there are partying somewhere, and you're in a lonely convention hall when Lincoln Kennedy comes in.
Lincoln Kennedy, what's up, man? Yeah, I'm working. Where you go? You going to the FHM party tonight? You going to FHM tonight? All right. I'll see you later.
I love Radio Row, man.
I do too.
Lincoln Kennedy off in the distance. What are you still doing here? Go home.
Go home.
I want to just go through a catalog of sound from the past of just things that we were remiss in not talking about this more. I was actually talking to Whittingham about putting together some sort of roundtable where we allow people who've been listening since back then, Stugotz, since we began and Roy was coming to remotes. He hung around long enough to get a job.
Yes.
I don't even understand what was happening there. I think, did we hire you within a year? Was it within a year just because you were showing up at everything?
That's right. Within a year.
I think Roy had an office job at first. Is that correct?
Yeah, office assistant.
Yeah, that's right. Amanda's.
Yeah.
And you were listening, and what was it? Like, what lured you out? What was, you were tired of QAM?
You know what? It was Caliendo. That was the first time I ever listened to the show. Was the Radio Row in Jacksonville when Caliendo stopped by the table.
It's a good time.
Yeah.
It's a good time if it makes you. Billy, how did you end up here? What's the backstory? I don't know.
My car.
Yeah. With gas?
I just started listening, and then I started I applied everywhere. I mean, I got an internship here because of Andy King. I started on Sedano. And then I changed my, I can admit this now. I changed my class schedule so that I couldn't do as many days in the morning because the morning was killing me because I was interning both the morning show and then I was interning also at night at CBS 4. So like I remember one specific day where it was a Sunday night football game. It was Dolphins Jets. And I was covering the game for CBS 4, like doing whatever it was that I was doing. And I got home at like 2 or 3 in the morning because CBS 4 did like the local fifth quarter, whatever it's called, and then I had to be up at Sedano's show at 5:30 the next day, and I was driving. I slept like 1 hour, or whatever it was. I was driving and I was biting my knuckles so I wouldn't fall asleep and crash and die on the way to the studio.
This is one of the reasons.
That's sports radio.
This is one of the reasons that I was so appalled on behalf of Zaslow because they did him so wrong. The man has aged in a way that's unreasonable because what the hours he was keeping doing heat stuff late at night and then having to do mornings.
That's the thing is really like, so if you're doing mornings, it's bad enough, right? But like when you're doing what Zaslow did for such a long time, and you know, me, obviously, what I did for a semester, when your schedule is so thrown off that some days you're up at this time and other days you're up in the morning and then you're up late, like that's what really throws you off. I don't know how Zaslow did it for so long.
It can't be that inhumane and that indecent that you don't give someone an explanation when they've given you 18 straight years. They were Boog's producer. They were one of the original employees. And they aged in a way that's unreasonable, doing broadcasts for the Heat until 1 o'clock in the morning and then being back up at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Zaslow's aging process just got astray.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you this, though. When Zaslow went to middays, within 6 months, he started to get color back in his face. It was amazing.
Stugotz, we did one Mike and Mike in the morning. We did one, and I'm still feeling it.
Yo, we did an April Fool's gag where we did a morning show instead of Sid. Oh my
You
God.
cannot do it that early. That is deeply
Never get used to waking up at like
unhealthy.
Oh,
Oh,
Never get used to that.
Stu, when I started on your show and you did the brief period, we did both mornings and afternoons during the 2012 NBA playoffs. I can admit this now, fell asleep for about 40 minutes of one 6 o'clock hour because I was dead. It was like after like Game 5 of the Eastern Conference
You were
Finals.
asleep on the air?
I was supposed to be manning the phones.
right.
And I just sort of nodded off in my little corner of the room. And
Hawk got so mad at you, by the way. I remember that.
Stugotz was doing mornings and afternoons for one period of how long? And it was
one Heat playoff run. I mean, the playoff run lasted like 3 months. It was exhausting. It really was. I do remember, and I'm being serious here because We didn't know how you felt about it. Like you were getting me and Hawk exhausted in the afternoons, and he and I kept saying to each other, man, this probably isn't fair to do to Dan because you weren't getting the best versions of us. I mean, we're half asleep during your show.
That's right, but
I'm still half asleep.
I don't
during the
believe
show.
that was a conversation that was being had.
No, I'm telling you, that was a conversation. Hawk and I were having that conversation on air.
Yeah.
Like, Dan's not going to be happy.
The conversation being had after they plotted their own solo ventures.
I mean, little 7 share in the mornings there. Well, he championship run.
Stugotz has such a great memory of what that time was. Him and Hawk.
Now if you get a one share, you're
going around trying to please me and not plotting another radio station opposite us to war with us. 560 decided to get back into the game by stealing you two.
Right. Well, I stayed right here with you, my friend. I mean, gonna need you to do 12 to noon on my new station, though.
when 12 to noon? 12
I meant noon to 3. Sorry. How good is your Spanish? 12 to noon. Right.
Let me ask, as this heat season is about to start, you've heard me say over the last couple of years, and I wonder if the way that the measurements are done is now different. You've heard me say that Daryl Morey says you know what a player is within 3 years. That after 3 years, there's only going to be so much improvement. That's the way Daryl Morey has done it as he revolutionizes the sport by bringing in the advent of 53s a game. And I'm watching last night, and Bam and Yurtsevin are starting the game with threes. And I ask you guys the question because I don't know the answer to it. Can that paradigm be shifted? Because I remember when we got very scared around here of Serge Ibaka one offseason, learned how to shoot threes all of a sudden, and the Oklahoma City Thunder were going to be a terror because a 23-year-old Serge Ibaka was shooting threes. Is this going to be the evolution now where Yurtsevin and Bam are now on the perimeter, and the way that you get an improvement out of Bam after 3 years of this is what he is that he extends his range?
If you listen to yesterday's local hour, you got a nice little spoiler for what you saw in the scrimmage, which was Bam making more threes in that scrimmage than Ben Simmons has in his entire career, I believe. So, yeah, that's the change in Bam Adebayo's game. You're going to see him more at the 4. I think we saw Caleb Martin starting at the 4, and we saw Spo tinker with some different lineups. And I don't know if you can go the route of saying this is who Bam is. I imagine he's going to lack aggression on taking some wide open threes. That might frustrate you too. That I think we can read into his game, even though he took exception to it in that local hour.
It's a nice thing to add to his game, though, if he could do it.
From a spacing perspective.
Of course, yes.
And like when Bam's your 5 and he's playing a game that's inside the paint, you leave yourself susceptible. And you're not really threatening teams and stretching them out for guys that can maybe drive to the hoop. You have a player in Jimmy Butler who's still shown at his age that he can get fouled a lot. It gives him more room to operate with. So you want to see players grow and develop their game. I don't necessarily think the 3-year sample thing, even though I'm a believer in it, applies to these last 3 years because they've been so kooky because of the pandemic.
I do think, though, that the only way that this has a material impact on the Heat is if Bam Adebayo develops a 3 or Omer Yurtsevin develops a 3 to the point where it commands respect of their opponent. And that's what Stan Van Gundy has talked a lot about on this show is, yeah, Giannis can take threes, but no one's ever going to respect it. No one's ever going to prioritize that ahead of stopping his ability to drive into the paint. He doesn't shoot it well enough, and so he gets wide open looks. Bam Adebayo, we looked this up yesterday, Tony, he was 0 of 6 from 3 last year. And so unless he goes from being that guy to a 38% shooter that commands respect, and I do think there is precedent for it, particularly in this modern NBA. I would look towards Brook Lopez as one of the examples. His first 6 years in the league, he shot 7 threes total. And within 4 years, he shot 512 in one season for Milwaukee.
Yeah, right. Super respected shooter. And the comp for Bam always to me was he can do some of the things that Giannis can do on offense because his ability to handle at his size. If all of a sudden you have defenders, like Woody said, closing out, having to get unsettled because they have to respect his shot, then he can put it down on the ground and make some plays. He's really good at assisting the ball, or he can go straight to the cup. So it's a great aspect of his game to add. This is how Miami can improve on last year's team without making the big whale acquisitions, which is guys like Tyler, guys like Caleb Martin, guys like Bam Adebayo, year 7. They need to add to their games.
Can I just step back for a moment with all of you? Because you have witnessed from, as we get nostalgic about 790 and all the things that we learned about basketball that were taught by the positionless basketball of Spoelstra as it was LeBron, Wade, and Bosch. Do you guys understand that the sport... Do you guys understand what you're saying when you say that one of the guys who's been best at survival of the fittest evolution is a Brook Lopez, who, and it's not a joke, every year for 4 years, the Heat would get a call, hey, you guys want Brook Lopez, and they'd hang up the phone. No, thank you. Do not want Brook Lopez. Every year for 4 years, as it seemed that the sport was going to box Brook Lopez out, he just takes it out there to 3, and now it's like, bam, Yurtsevin, you're going to have to play out here too, because I'm still confused. I'm still confused when I see some of these dudes. Karl Anthony Towns hitting threes confuses me.
Right, at a 41% clip. I mean, that's crazy.
Right,
when he came into the league, he was shooting like 25% from 3.
And when Morey was talking about that, I think he was also discussing in like guys to fill out your roster, these projects. Like, I kind of know what Josh Richardson is going to be in 3 years, but an all-star that has this all-world elite skill set, there's so many players. Jason Kidd learned how to shoot threes late in his career.
Mike, you expect, if I make you bet on it, is Bam
Andrew Wiggins is still improving on what he is. If you have that all-star talent in you, you can absolutely add
I ask you to
game.
bet it, and you got to be right, that Bam is going to be someone who lines up out there and is going to be feared. You cannot leave him open
what are you talking about
out there.
feared? Like 35%?
You can't leave him open out there. You can't do it.
I think that's what Miami has to do. I think Spo's telling you, showing his cards. This is the necessary evolution.
But
Do I think he can do it? I don't know if I have to bet on it. I don't know. But will Spo try to make it happen and will it into existence? Yes, I do think so.
You don't think he's good enough to do it?
I'm just saying.
Athletic
I'm just
enough?
saying it's a big ask. It's all you guys are just sort of shrugging your shoulders on. Hey, can you extend your range one off season real quick? Can you do it for us? We were a shot away last year. We need you to extend your range. You guys are making that sound a lot easier than it is.
But we've seen others do it. Karl Anthony Towns, Al Horford has done it. Brook Lopez has done it.
Better place,
it takes a few seasons.
Bam in his career, he's played 5 seasons in the league. He's 7 of 50 from 3.
Yeah,
total.
I don't know, because what I'm doing with the Bam thing is I'm applying what I see in playoff moments. Hey, the mid-range jumper is there for you. They're daring you to take it, and you refuse. How many times is that 3 going to be there for him, and he refuses to take it? So I think that remains to be seen. But like I said, the process right now is for him to add that to his game.
Stugotz, the way this team has been coached with Spo, it has been, hey, Duncan Robinson, shoot, 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 shoot. Don't care if you miss. Don't care if you miss. Stop thinking about it. Oh, Max Strus isn't thinking about it. Max Strus extends it. He's not thinking about it. Duncan, go sit on the bench. Max Strus is now going to extend us. Now you're pushing one of your big talents for a growth that is hurried after you were a shot away. And I'm asking you guys to be somewhat reasonable on what that expectation is, as you just asked Bam, hey, can you develop a 35% from 3?
I think we are being reasonable.
I'm not saying he's going to be Larry Bird.
No one's giving. You want us to give you an answer. I don't know why. Like, I don't know what kind of 3-point shooter he's going to be.
What are you expecting, though?
I'm expecting him to line up in lineups next to Yurtsevin, and the thought is that shot's going to be there for you. What clip he makes it at, I don't know. How often he takes it, I don't know. I have a scrimmage of sample and people that I've talked to in the offseason.
But you want to see it. You want to see it. You want to see it. Run around.
I told you yesterday that we're going to see it.
You wanted to trade him. You've wanted to trade him.
At times, I think, because this team, we look at like the.
Because he can't hit a 3.
We look at the landscape of the NBA, and you look at, well, does Miami have the pieces to get this guy, that guy, this guy? Yeah, they do. If you're willing to part with Bam. So if we're talking about Damian Lillard, yeah. I'll help Bam pack at that point because I like Damian Lillard so much. I like Bam Adebayo as a player. I think defensively, he's as gifted as anybody in the NBA outside of maybe Giannis. He is an incredible defender, a great ball handler for his size. If he adds a 3, we're talking about a player that will get back to the All-Star game. If he adds a dependable 3, it's a mighty big if. You know why? None of us have seen it.
It is. It's a big ask.
This coming from Ryan Cortez. Yurtsevin said he made 300 3-pointers each day he worked out this summer and hit them at an 80% clip.
Come on,
doing
man.
it again.
No, practice. I've heard that Bam
Classic
shoots.
key propaganda.
No, I've heard that Bam shoots a 3 well at practice for years now. Yeah, I've
Chris
yeah.
Cody and I watched Yurtsevin make threes before playoff games all last year. Like, what does that mean?
Shaq would make all his free throws in practice too.
Your Mets, I mean,
Well, they got a doubleheader today.
well,
They got rained out last night.
They
right?
lose one and they blow it for themselves. They
Can't lose one.
No, they can't. They
The
have,
magic number's 1. Braves win 1, Mets lose 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they I mean, I'm assuming that the first game of the doubleheader's in the afternoon, so they could lose the division before the Marlins even play the Braves tonight.
Yes. I think the first game is...
Well, the Marlins have won 6 out of 7, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
that Brewers series, man.
They're getting hot just at the right time.
They're just playing spoiler.
Nice to go into the offseason, Bill, with a little...
There's nothing else that they do this year.
Their
At least
pitching
they
has
play
been
spoiler.
good. I was looking at like the batting average against and like numbers of their pitchers. Their pitching's been really good. Their offense is just so dreadful that they couldn't do anything with the pitching that they got.
410 for...
12 strikeouts last night.
Yeah,
Oh,
12 Ks.
Yeah.
Luzardo.
Yeah. That's a good game.
410 for the first game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Carrasco.
Where do you think the season turned for you guys? Was it the trumpet?
The Braves getting hot.
Yeah.
Yep. Braves are good.
I don't like this attitude that Mets fans have where you've like just accepted that the season's over because you play the Padres in the first round more than likely.
I don't think Mets... I think they were disappointed they didn't win the division after leading that division the entire season. Then
Yeah,
losing
but-
it at the very end. That Braves series was very disappointing.
Well, yeah.
But you had the rotation set up perfectly. You had DeGrom in Game 1, Scherzer in Game 2, and the Mets got swept.
I think going into it, you had like a 90% chance of winning the division. And
did.
then afterwards, you had a like 79% chance of, or the Braves had like a 79% chance of winning the division.
But I don't think Met fans are...
Yeah, it's over. That's the sense that I get.
I don't feel like it's over.
Really?
I do think Mets fans feel similarly doom and gloom as I feel like about the Dolphins, where
Really?
you're always prepared for bad things to happen.
Well, because they usually do happen, except for the 1 year where they didn't happen in 1986. Other than that, it always happens. I mean, Mets fans and Jet fans, they're
Right,
the
for
same
me,
creature.
it's the
If
condition.
you're a Jet fan, you're a Met fan. You've been through some tough times.
It's the condition of supporting the B teams in New York, right?
Yes.
Not to be overly harsh about it, but
They're the B teams in New York.
right,
Correct.
like
Yes.
there's a condition that comes with that. You just sort of assume the worst. You assume the Jets will be bad. You assume the Islanders will be bad. You assume that all of the B teams in New York will be bad, and you're sort of bracing for it before it's even happened.
It's a weird city in this respect. The Giants have won a bunch of Super Bowls. The Jets have won one. The Islanders have won 4 Stanley Cups in my lifetime, went to 5 straight, won 4 straight. And yet the Rangers are the biggest story in town by a lot. The 1 Stanley Cup they won. The Islanders won 4 in a row. The 1 cup that Messier won for the Rangers was a much bigger deal than the Islanders winning 4 in a row. So yeah, like rooting for those B teams is super difficult.
And they're
then-
all your favorites. You only you like.
I'm a B team guy, yeah.
You're the
Yeah, B team.
You're
Yeah.
all B team things.
Should really,
Jets-
should really have adopted the Brooklyn Nets as a result.
No.
Hates
well,
Kevin Durant too much. He's compromised there.
Well, growing up, it was in New Jersey. They played in New Jersey, so it was Kittles and Jason Kidd and those guys. They went to the finals a couple of years, but no, that was never an option
Stugotz,
for me.
you, I have not been able to tell. Billy, can you tell me whether you can tell whether Stugotz has just been at dead shows and moving his kids, so he hasn't been that interested in the Mets season because of laziness and indifference, or because they've broken his heart so many times that the couple of times we have engaged him on the Mets, he's doomsdaying because he thinks they're doomed to lose to the Padres in the playoffs, and he's going to get his heart broken again.
Well,
Which one's the
he's
truth?
saying that he doesn't feel that way, that he doesn't think this. The weird thing about it is the Mets have the exact same record as the Yankees right now.
I know.
They could, if they win 2 games, they're going to win 100 games on the season.
Yep.
And-
And they should. They're playing Washington to wrap up the season.
But the feeling is like the season was a disappointment with 100 wins. That's crazy.
No, the season's a disappointment when you lead the division the entire season,
Yeah,
and then at the
but-
very end, you lose it with your staff set up against the Braves. That's the disappointment, but I still think they can beat the Padres. It's baseball, man.
But the Braves are really good.
I know the Braves are really good, but the Mets are also really good. They're a game worse than the Braves. And so I still feel, listen, for me, I feel optimistic. Like, I think they can beat the Padres. I think they can beat the Dodgers. They can beat anyone because they have DeGrom and Scherzer.
You think they can beat the Dodgers?
DeGrom and Scherzer. Yes, they can beat anyone. I mean, they can. It's a good Met team.
It's just baseball. It's just
Well, that's-
anybody.
that's-
The,
Weird stuff
the
happens.
Cardinals can win the World Series.
That's really the truth about all of this. Is the Mets could still win. I think the Mets could win the World Series, and Mets fans will still be pissed that they lost the division.
They might. Yes.
That they blew the division lead that they had.
Yes.
I do like the pivot of scrappy underdog New York Mets that have spent so much freaking money.
So much money.
Now the pivot is, hey, with DeGrom and Scherzer, hey, we could beat anybody.
Billy,
It could be our year.
NL East, huh? Sneaky good division.
Yeah.
3 teams in the playoffs. Who'd have thunk it?
Billy, how did you feel last night? Did you tune in instead of Monday Night Football? Did you didn't tune in to watch the Braves? I thought you love spoiler. I would figure you would be the guy all
Yeah.
for anarchy and sure, have the Marlins get up 4-0 on the Braves and shut them out.
The thing is that I like the role of spoiler, but I don't like the people benefiting from the spoiling that's being done. So I'm very conflicted. Like, I don't like the idea of helping the Phillies make the playoffs. That does absolutely nothing for me. In
or
fact,
helping
it
the
ma-
Mets win a division. Right,
Yeah, I mean, helping. That's the thing. Is like, is it helping the Braves lose the division or helping the Mets win the division? And either one isn't a good option for me. Same thing with like making sure the Brewers didn't make the playoffs. Like, cool, but now the Phillies are making the playoffs, and I don't like them either. You know, so there's no good options. The thing is that my fandom is largely, and it's great. My fandom largely revolves around hating other teams. You know, because my team, and this is like a historic moment that happened last week. My team, the Marlins, just last week became the team with the worst winning percentage in baseball. The Padres have now handed that title over to the Marlins. Before it was the Padres had the worst winning percentage.
Oh,
historically,
ever? You
and
mean
now
ever? You mean
In the
Yeah.
history of baseball.
Yeah, in the history of baseball. Yeah, so like it's going to be a
That
battle
happened
back and
this
forth.
week, so you
it
could have-
happened last week, I believe. Yeah, so the Marlins
We should have had a ceremony for you as like the greatest loser, right?
Well, I mean, it's also that's the thing though. It's also like a tricky one because they may, as a franchise, have the worst winning percentage, but they've won 2 World Series. So it's like, and they've never won the division.
Not only 2, but you Stugotz
all over
forgot
the
one of the
place,
Mets
this team.
ones. But you say a loser.
Well, 86 and 69.
Yes, there was 69, but that the Marlins have won as many as the Mets is funny.
Yeah, I mean, and they've won more than the Padres. They've won more than a bunch of teams.
Since 97, how many teams have won 2 World Series? I'm guessing not a lot. I'm certain the Yankees have.
Yes, they're the
Right.
Giants, they're
Right.
the Cardinals.
I don't think the Dodgers have
Sox.
since 97.
No, the Dodgers have, the Braves haven't because they won the one. I think the Braves have 2 World Series, right? But they won in 96 or 95. When did they win? So it's, I mean, it's a lot of
95 they beat the Indians.
Yeah, it's a lot of winning that they've done in terms of championships, but that's the only winning that they've done, which is like a really strange thing to say. Like when they win, and when they don't, they don't.
They only have one playoff round they've won, and it was in the pandemic season, right? Other than the 2 World Series when
What a
they won
season
all
that
of the
was.
playoffs.
Don't get me started. They could have gone on a run there if those damn cheating Cubs wouldn't have broken Starling Marte's wrist. Which, by the way, you need him back too, huh? What's his deal? Can he grab a bat or
no,
what?
he's out. He's out for the rest of the season.
Just tape his hand to the bat. It's fine. Like if he can't grip it, just tape his hand to it. What's the big deal? Why can't you do that? Put a bunch of pine tar on it. Why can't we do that?
Mike, I wanted to ask you about something that was happening with the Heat, but before I do that, Stugotz, did you see?
By the way, to answer your question, the list since 97, the Yankees, the Giants, the Cardinals, and the Red Sox. Those are the teams, and the Florida Marlins, and the teams who win multiple championships since
Ridiculous.
1997.
So great. Doesn't it give you a sense
funny.
of pride, guys?
It is
won
funny.
more than the
It's-
Dodgers.
Those are illustrious ball clubs.
So great.
It's just wild. Like they're complete.
Yes, we're very much all or nothing.
They're events that happened in
Yes.
their own individuality. They were not connected to anything. There was not a building of team. There was not multiple playoff runs. It's just one-off events that happen, flashes in the pan, and then it's gone.
Do you not understand how Miami sports fans became the way that they are? We didn't have anything, and then next thing you know, it's just all or nothing, and we're filling a football stadium for a World Series crowd. You got 80,000 people there. Because it's not a baseball stadium. It's a football stadium. We're great at these singular events and nothing else.
But how could we know if Miami would support a baseball team if they have the worst winning percentage in the history of baseball? Like,
That's a good question.
Like, how
Because
could
they
we know
won
that?
twice and then stripped it down both times afterward.
Yeah, why would you go 2 seasons after they won? You wouldn't.
Right.
I think you could do I think you'd be very good at this game.
Terry Francona.
I
All
will.
right, hang on. Let me write down how many there are.
Because there's repeat managers.
okay.
I think Billy will carry us here because I think our show suffers. Stugotz, I don't know how your aging process has worked in sports, but mine involved forgetting what players' numbers were, then forgetting what stadium names were called when they started changing.
That's not fair, though, because
all
they
the
change all the
sponsorships.
time.
Constantly
No, but I'm not,
changing,
even
yes.
before they were changing this much, though, I was losing very fast interest in what things were named. And then the next spot in aging for me was I don't care who the managers are anymore.
Oh no.
I don't care whether Gabe Kapler is here or there. It doesn't matter to me whether or not
Gabe Kapler's not the one I would have chosen. Smoldering.
Yeah. It does
I
matter.
think crude count, but I think there are 18 World Series champion managers since 1997.
and is one of them like Mike Matheny or something?
The Cardinals? Yeah.
Nope.
Are we including?
No?
Are we
Wow.
including 97?
Yeah. We're starting at Leland.
Okay,
right?
so there's Leland
and Trader
McKeon.
Jack.
and then Torrey. We'll just try to go in order. Leland, Torrey.
I don't know the World Series champion.
Bob Brenly was the manager of the
Arizona.
Diamondbacks,
Wow.
Arizona.
Yeah.
Brenly. Wow.
right? Who won in between? It was just Marlins and then Yankees.
No.
and
Story. Yeah.
There was the red team.
Oh, the Angels. Mike Scioscia.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
That's a good one.
Wait,
All right, so you got up to 03. Where's 04?
Bochy's in there a bunch of times.
Bochy's in there.
04 is the Red Sox.
Red Sox.
And, that was
Joe
Frank.
Torre has to be
Francona.
in there,
Francona's
obviously.
in there.
Yeah,
Tito.
Tito. Yeah.
Ozzy's in there.
Ozzy's
Ozzy
in
Oh,
there.
that's
Yes.
right.
Shout.
Ozzy snuck in there with
Ozzy's
one
in
of
there, like,
them. That's right.
Yeah.
05 or
I'm
something,
trying
right?
to. The game that
Holy
I'm really
shit.
enjoying
Ozzy
right now
Guillen.
is trying to pick the ones that you're not gonna get.
Hmm.
Because there's
Oh.
a couple in here that
Well,
I'm not gonna
Girardi-
lie. Like I straight up read a name for the first time in my life. I had no idea.
Well, Joe Madden finally got
Madden
one.
got
with the
one.
Cubs.
Girardi got one.
Ryan
Girardi got one with the
Snicker
Yankees.
on the last one.
Yeah, Snicker.
Snicker.
The Braves.
Dave Roberts got
Yes,
one with
Dave
the Dodgers.
Roberts got one.
You haven't
Oh.
said the one that I know that you're not gonna get.
Who is the Astros manager?
Oh, the band manager?
Band manager.
AJ Hinch.
Manager?
AJ Hinch.
Hinch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you still haven't said the one.
The one.
There's
Look at
one
Mike.
you're looking
there's
for?
one.
What year was it?
I'm not gonna give you that. Come
Okay. he's
Well,
not
it's just
gonna
the,
give it
this
to
is the
us.
Cardinals
Phillies?
manager then, right?
on.
Charlie Manuel was not the manager of
Charlie,
the Phillies,
no.
was he?
Yeah, he was.
He was?
That's one of
Huh.
them.
He's
got- oh, wow.
Wait, LaRussa had to win one, right?
LaRussa did.
Yeah. Huh.
But Mike is just
wow.
saying
Bruce
there's
Bochy?
one right now. No, we've got
No, we got
Bochy already
Bochy.
a couple of times. We're-
Matheny didn't win.
Okay, but the card.
Matheny lost to the manager that I know you're not going to be able to
this
name.
is the problem. This is where I've gotten stuck. I didn't know who the Cardinals manager was.
Oh, I know who it is. Ned Yost.
No, you
No, that's the
mentioned
Royals
him.
manager.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nah.
Mitch Yost.
So who did the
gotta be a Red Sox
who did the
manager.
Cardinals
No.
know? I want to say
Yeah, well, you're getting warmer. Someone is.
Joey Cora was not the manager.
No, Alex Cora won.
Alex
Won
Cora.
one.
No, you still haven't named it.
Same.
All right, I'm gonna.
Oh, wow.
We're calling the race.
I shouldn't say Joey and Alex are the same. I apologize for that.
John Farrell.
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 we could have been here all day.
Yes, and Mike knew it. And
the
I
former
think
Blue
it would
Jays
have been. You know
John
what?
Farrell won a World Series with the 2013 Boston Red Sox.
Did we get all the others?
And he beat Mike Matheny.
Did we get all the others?
Do you think that
That's
Mike
crazy that
Schur
we
would
did that.
easily get that? Do you think that Mike Schur would just
he's a
go through
weirdo.
that when he does stat of the day that he would, or that he too would get stuck on Farrell? Because
Oh, wait, you did miss one other one.
We missed one. Yeah.
Yeah, 2019.
2019. Who won in 2019?
Oh, you don't remember the run of Anthony Rendon?
Oh, the
Oh,
Nationals
Who
manager.
was the Nationals manager that year? Who was
Jesus.
the Nationals manager that year? Hold on a second. He's square-faced. I mean,
We were commemorating the change in sports radio earlier today. This is what it used to sound like.
Yeah.
I produced this show. I did.
This is
Bad bullpen decisions.
Before the internet, nobody could look things up, so you were just doing it from memory.
And there was like your one impressive friend that could answer all these questions. And you were like, wow, what an impressive person you are because you can
Look,
name
Billy
all the World
is
Series
stumped
winning
back there.
managers.
Billy,
It was
it's
Boog.
2019.
If someone
and it
sat
is,
me down and said, name all the Washington Nationals managers, I think I'd get one. And
Frank Robinson.
I would say Matt Williams.
What? Oh,
Yeah.
Is Dusty Baker?
Dusty Baker? That sounds right.
I so badly wanted to shout Jim Riggleman.
Riggs.
So you guys
comedic
didn't know
name.
John Farrell, and you did not know
Davey Lopez?
Dave Martinez.
Oh, Dave
Oh,
Martinez. I know there's a Davey
Is
in
he
there.
still the manager?
Who cares?
Stugotz.
That is the right answer, actually.
They lost like
Terrible.
112 games
Yeah.
this year.
They're going to eliminate Sugotz's Mets from the division.
There today.
Yeah.
Yes.
Stugotz is claiming that last night's 49ers-Rams game was a classic.
It was classic Jimmy G. I mean, it was classic Jimmy G. I mean, listen, he made a throw to Deebo Samuel. Now, Deebo did all the work. He took it 70-something yards, but Jimmy G, I love a quarterback, Dan. If he can't have one of the great ones, like Marino, Montana, Herbert, guys like that, guys who just stand out of the
Cooper Rush.
field. Yeah, Cooper Rush. Give me a guy, okay? Just give me a guy that's kind of benign, doesn't lose the game. You barely notice he's out there. Give me Jeff Hostetler. Give me Trent Dilfer. Give me, I'm telling
Those
you,
shitty
and
quarterbacks.
Give me Jimmy. He's not going to lose you games. He'll occasionally win you a game, but he'll keep you in every game.
Pretty
and
sure I've
that's
seen
what Jimmy G
Garoppolo
does.
lose them games.
Yeah, but he kept them in those games, and he got them to those games.
This
The
is
where he
NFC
lost them.
Championship and the Super Bowl. He's a couple of throws away from being an
Stugotz.
all-time
Yeah.
great.
Stugotz.
Give
An
me a
extra-
quarterback you don't notice.
An extra $100K for that win also. What a deal, man.
His own missed throws. You're saying he's a
Well,
couple of missed
whatever.
throws. Well, he's the one who missed them.
Yeah, but he got him to those games. I mean, because he has a calming effect on the team. He doesn't go for too much. He doesn't, he always gets you numbers, a touchdown, very few interceptions, good running game,
He
great
knows
defense.
who he is,
Yes.
Jimmy G.
It is
And he
funny.
knows what team he's on.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, not often, but there are glaring deficiencies in his game, and you would think that he'd be so easily replaceable. Yet his winning percentage compared to everybody else that's come for his job it's stellar. He's a stellar quarterback when it comes to winning percentage.
Stugotz, why are you turning away from me, ashamed from the microphone, turning your back to me? I think.
Because the analysis from the two guys who host God Bless Football is he knows who he is and he knows what team he's on. I mean,
And this is how I know who you are and how I know what team you're on.
yeah.
You are basically, in your evolution as a broadcaster, you've decided to defend the Alex Smith take from wherever you can.
Yep.
And you are the one unashamed of saying Alex Smith should hold on to the caretaker job instead of Patrick Mahomes, who does amazing things. And this is the latest evolution of it. How will this be your religion? How will you be the saint? Who will be your saint of Alex Smith religion? It shall be Jimmy Garoppolo, correct?
Yeah, I mean, Mahomes has only done it once. Trent Dilfer did it once. Jeff Hostetler did it once, I mean, listen, these quarterbacks are a little too flashy, a little, look at me. Just give me a guy who's going to hand the ball off 35 times a game.
I'm
Going
sorry.
to make 20 passes, no interceptions, and keep you in the ball game.
Meat and
I'm sorry.
potatoes.
That's
Yeah.
what Jimmy G does.
I'm
I mean,
laughing because Roy has just injured himself. I don't know how he did it. He's had a lifetime in radio being very protective of the sound, and he just hit himself in the right eye with his headphones.
Yeah, I'm wearing two headsets right now because I'm listening to this and editing right now, and I just hit myself in the eye with my laptop.
Are you okay?
No, I'm not. I'm not.
Jimmy G, that is not what I want from the quarterback position. I don't want to watch 7-10 years of that. I feel like Whittingham has watched that with Tannehill. This cusp of, I think a guy can be great. I could talk myself into it. If you give me 3 more weapons and I have an elite defense, maybe I can get to within a throw of the Super Bowl. I don't want the guy that the quarterback, I don't want the quarterback who has to be hidden, concealed by my coach.
We know Jimmy can't be great. We also know that he can't be lousy. That's not just, a middle-of-the-road quarterback who does what, he needs to do to keep his team in ball games and get him to the big game. And that's what Jimmy G is the best at. He really is. Name another quarterback who's good at that these days. Go ahead.
Why is it that of caretaker football?
Yes.
Andy Dalton just did that.
The red rifle. I think even Andy Dalton threw for 300-plus yards.
But name another guy who's mediocre enough to be just caretaker football guy on because it can't be that
Kirk Cousins.
Oh my God!
He's just an average guy.
What are we doing
He's
here?
fine. I think his career is
Not
he's
a
exactly
guy.
500. He's just an average
He's not
guy.
a guy.
Guys,
He's not a
Just
guy.
be average.
He's a
Average is
guy.
enough. Just
Jeez.
don't be below average or bad.
I mean, maybe he's a dude.
average is good
Maybe a
enough
dude.
now. Yeah, just be average.
Yeah.
Just don't be terrible.
this
Just don't lose the game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jimmy Garoppolo is exceptional at fitting a slant in 11 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. That's what he does. Is he throws a slant route like nobody else in the league.
Right. And you need a slant every now and then, right?
He can find Debo Samuel on a drag route.
It helps if you have Debo on that slant.
It was a terrible throw.
The problem, there's too many people wanting to stand out. Just kind of fit in with the crowd. Don't stand out for being too good. Don't stand out for being too
There's
bad.
a lane.
Yeah, 16 years in the league, you're good, man.
Yeah.
Why do any more or less?
Jimmy
Just fit
Garoppolo
in.
was worse in the league last year at our favorite stat, big time throws.
Right.
He had a big time throw on 2.2% of his dropbacks.
What was he ranked to big time wins, though?
Good question there.
Yeah, NFC Championship game.
Probably.
Beat the Packers.
One at Dallas and one at Lambeau,
yeah,
and then lost in L.A.
right.
Yeah, so Stugotz is going to hang on to the win take as well. Even if the quarterback's
lost the
not
NFC
the reason.
Championship
Yes,
game.
no, but he won
He made it to the NFC
Yes.
Championship game while beating Aaron Rodgers on the road.
So he's like fourth in the league in big time wins.
Top
4.
five. Yeah.
what I'm willing,
He's fine.
what I'm willing to concede to Stugotz is that while you don't want your guy to just be average, it is better than this alternative that is provided as a stat from Jim Aiello about Matt Ryan, which is the other side of this. When you get the guy at the end who you didn't know was at the very end, and this stat makes an appearance. Phillip Rivers a few years ago, do you remember? He was sacked 19 times for 118 yards in 16 games. Matt Ryan has been sacked 15 times for that many yards in 4 games. It's worse to have the quarterback where you think, we're just a little bit of a quarterback away. Can it be Garoppolo instead of Matt Ryan? Can it be Garoppolo instead of Carson Wentz? I'm watching something that looks spent to me, so I'll take the guy in the middle who's kind of pristine because he hasn't played that much. He's played 26 games and he's won a bunch of them.
We're playing a game back here. Guess the next Colts quarterback.
We were doing this the other day.
Wow.
Stafford. Stugotz is done with Stafford.
You think it's Stafford?
I'm done with Matthew Stafford. For me, Matthew Stafford is one of the 5 most overrated quarterbacks to ever win a Super Bowl.
He just won a Super Bowl.
And you know what?
You
He
the
made
ultimate
huge
winning
throws.
guy was the
No,
last guy
no,
who won.
no,
where you end
no.
all arguments by saying he won.
He's also hurt.
Matt Stafford, listen, the great quarterbacks, okay? What they do is they make any team good. He was in Detroit with Calvin Johnson. They were never, ever good.
Made the
It took
playoffs.
the right coach, the right situation, the right running game, the right defense, the right time, all of it for Matthew. And even then, Stafford threw the worst pass in the history of postseason play. It should have been picked off by Tampa Bay. The game should have been over. The Rams never win a Super Bowl. Matthew Stafford.
Picked off by San Francisco.
Picked off by Tampa Bay.
Yeah, because he
they
got away
should have
with
lost
one.
that game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They should have lost that game.
And then he made one of the biggest throws of the season to Cooper Kupp.
To
In the
beat
history,
Brady.
of the
Yeah.
sport.
To beat Brady.
Right.
To beat
But
on
it
the road.
shouldn't have happened.
To beat
On the
Brady.
road.
Yeah, but he shouldn't have
And then
beaten
another
Brady.
big one in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, but he only got that pass because the other guy dropped the
But what are you
interception.
doing?
Otherwise,
But
game
what
over.
are you
He
doing?
never. Matthew Stafford's not good.
But you-
That's what I'm doing.
Okay, but you.
They
He's
may have
overrated.
lost. They lost that trade, I think.
Yep.
Goff, look what he's doing in Detroit.
Stugotz takes no inventory of his takes, so he got so mad at me for complaining for about 10 days that Stafford, who was the highest paid quarterback in the league, was overpaid given how good he was. This was so long ago, and now he's arrived at the take, and he measures his success by do you win? Stafford just won. Doesn't that answer everything for you?
Yeah, but they
he's
didn't
got
win because of Stafford,
So
right.
zero championships
What?
in your personal record book. Not the guy who led a drive at the end with a no-look pass.
I'm just saying he's a fine quarterback. In Detroit, he was an average quarterback. Now,
No,
all of a
he's
sudden,
no.
we're talking about him like he's one of the all-time greats.
He wasn't average. He's a Hall of Famer.
No, he's not. No,
Yeah,
stop
he's
it.
last
knock it
year.
off.
Last year locked it in. Look at the all-time passing
La-
record.
Last year, it took moving to LA,
Yeah, well,
the right
it took winning a
situation, the
Super
right
Bowl.
coach,
So
the
what?
right
I mean,
defense.
dude,
Aaron Donald's the best player on the team. It's not the
He
quarterback.
made the throws in the Super Bowl.
You just argued on behalf of having a quarterback that is Matthew Stafford, in your
Guys,
judgment.
he made it-
you argued on behalf of, just be a guy who manages the game and does a thing every once in a while.
That's
the quarterback
fine.
I want.
But you guys are saying he's great.
Right. You're
He's a
saying
Hall of Famer.
Eh.
Yeah, no, he's not.
Okay, all right, guys.
I'm just
I
saying.
think he's a Hall. He'll
Of
be a
all
Hall of
the-
Famer on the basis of the accolades and the numbers that he's accrued.
100%.
But I
But
sort
had
of-
that interception not been dropped, he wouldn't have been a
But
Hall
like-
of Famer.
Exactly
I,
right.
I still think he might have been a Hall of Famer
No.
if you look at the passing records.
Mike, I'm telling you, of all the Super Bowl winning
Valid.
quarterbacks, he's one of the 5 worst. Look at them all. He is. He's right up there with Jim Plunkett.
But you want Hostetler.
There are a lot of quarterbacks
You're
in the
all
70s
over the
and
place,
80s.
dude.
God bless football.
I
with
love
Billy
Haas.
All over the
Gill.
place in
It's
this segment.
Listen, Haas doesn't win you games, but he doesn't lose you games. That's what I'm saying. Matthew Stafford can lose you a game. Hence, Tampa Bay, they should have lost that game because of Matthew
And
Stafford.
he could also win you a Super Bowl.
Right. Well, so can Hostetler. Yeah.
Oh, no. That defense won the Super Bowl. Stafford won the Super Bowl with that throw.
Aaron Donald didn't help.
I am watching on the television right now from last night's game. This is a funny thing that happened.
Did the Rams win that Super Bowl, or did the Bengals lose that Super Bowl? It's
Another
really
good
a conversation
question.
we should
Yes,
be having.
Great question. Yes.
When Stugotz says that last night was a classic Jimmy G game, and I am watching on my television, Stugotz, he's throwing a pass to Kittle for a touchdown, and I see clearly in the corner, and I love when this happens in sports, Marquise Goodwin is furious because he was open. The pass went to Kittle, and his teammate is just so pissed off because he ran one of those clean routes and he had the corner. He had so much more space than Kittle, and the ball was thrown to Kittle, and Goodwin was pissed. I had the touchdown right here. Why didn't you give me the touchdown?
Tony it makes a great point back here. I don't think there's a quarterback in the league that leaves their receivers jumping in frustration more than Jimmy Garoppolo. And they won the game by 2 touchdowns, and you saw that multiple times in a game that they won.
All throughout the pregame, they were showing how Jimmy's eyes are not, following the right receivers when they're running routes. There was like 3 or 4 different times where there's just a tight end open by himself, kind of doing jumping jacks, like waiting for the ball, and he throws like a little 13-yard out or something. He's really bad at that.
Classic Jimmy G. Stugotz says, just for the record, because it was last night's game, Jimmy G's a quarterback you want. Stafford overrated because it's the last thing he saw.
Mm-hmm. I don't think that Jimmy G has ever lost to the Rams or Matthew Stafford. I mean, you can look it up, but I'm pretty certain he never has. Right.
Except for the NFC Championship game.
Right. Well, that one.
There is that one.
The game that, quite honestly, Stafford had no business being in. That's all I'm saying about Stafford. He had no
All right,
business
let's
being in
do
the
it.
NFC
Fine.
Championship game.
Let's do it. Top 5 Super Bowl winning quarterbacks of all time. Let's just do it. This is all
Top
been
5? Because I'm
these
working
are-
on my top 5 worst.
That's what I have, too. I have my top 5 overrated Super Bowl winning quarterbacks of all time.
I have flatly the worst quarterbacks to ever win a Super Bowl.
Let's do it.
It's essentially the same thing.
Okay, let's do it. You guys
Dueling
think
list.
you're going
How
to
about
have
that?
the same list? Do you think you're going to have a different list? Both lists are prepared. We are ready to go. The rare having of lists at the ready where they are in agreement, because I've been very frustrated with what Stugotz has brought to this segment. Stugotz, the last couple of weeks, his analysis has been a bit stinky.
It has? I mean,
on football.
21-9, Dano.
Top 5 overrated quarterbacks to win a Super Bowl. Stugotz, number 5.
Jim Plunkett. I mean, look at the numbers. Jim Plunkett was not a very good quarterback. He was not. He won a couple of Super Bowls, I think, but he was not a very good
Mike
quarterback.
Ryan, number 5.
This one was tough, but I'm gonna go Nick Foles.
Oh wow!
There's some bad quarterbacks. Like there's
I
a
left
Ripien
Foles off.
like
Mark Rippon was a good quarterback, though. Yeah.
Yeah, he was okay. Number 4, Stugotz.
Number 4 for me, Troy Aikman.
Oh Jesus! That's
What?
that's blasphemy right
He
there.
had Emmitt Smith. He had a great defense. He had great special teams, a great coach. I mean, Troy Aikman did very little to win those Super Bowls.
I mean, well, oh wow, okay. Now, I mean, you're
the
not
Hall of Famer.
You're not wrong that he didn't have to throw many touchdown passes, but that's harsh. Number 4, Mike Ryan.
Joe Namath.
Ooh.
That's
Willie.
a good one. That's a great one.
Broadway Joe.
Jim Plunkett had 4 seasons in his career in which he had more touchdowns than interceptions.
How many years
Look
did
at
he
his
play?
completion
15.
percent. Look at that quarterback rating for his career.
Completion percentage 52.5.
Look at the QB rating.
Career quarterback rating 67.5.
Look at Joe Namath. Look at Joe Namath's touchdown to interception ratio.
A sub 70 QB rating for Jim Plunkett.
No, but look,
One of the all-time greats, please.
look, wait until you find how many interceptions Joe
These are
Namath
words.
threw versus how many touchdowns. Hall of Famer Joe Namath, poster boy for Jets glory and New York stardom.
Joe Namath, career 50.1% completion, 173 touchdowns to 220 interceptions. His career quarterback rating was 65.5.
Number 4, Mike.
Davis Mills is better
My
than
number
that.
4 was Joe Namath.
All right, number 3, Stugotz.
Matthew Stafford. No business being in that game. I mean, I'm sorry.
What are you doing?
It should have been picked off. Terrible job.
Number 3.
Trent Dilfer.
Ooh. See, but no one thinks Dilfer's great anyway. That's why.
There's a lot to choose from. There's Brad Johnson's.
Number 2.
Yeah, but no one thinks Brad Johnson's great. That's my point. Right.
Number
They're doing different lists. Mike's doing worse. Stugotz is doing overrated, and Stugotz
Yeah.
is saying no one thinks that Brad Johnson is good, so he's not overrated.
Right. No one thinks Nick
Yeah.
Foles is good.
Right, so
Yeah.
we're not
But-
doing the same list.
No,
I'm doing
different-
worst quarterbacks
different
to
list.
win a
Right.
Super Bowl.
I was promised the same list. Number 2, Stugotz.
Peyton Manning.
Just nuked my number 1. Yeah.
You nuked my number 1.
Yeah, well, I had Joe Namath. Yeah.
All right, great.
Yeah,
I'm
that's why we
glad.
shouldn't have had
I'm
competing
glad.
lists, I
I'm
guess.
glad, yeah.
Because
What-
Plunkett was
yeah.
my number 2, Peyton Manning was my number
excellent,
1.
Excellent work.
Wow.
Excellent work.
Peyton
by
Manning
both
was the
of
worst
you.
quarterback to ever win a Super
Yes,
Bowl.
that is correct.
That guy was garbage in
Yes,
Denver.
9 touchdowns, 17 interceptions. Could not throw the ball.
Made me contemplate the future of the sport.
Shouldn't
That
have
Super
been
Bowl.
playing. Should not have been. Neck so broken. Should not have been out there.
Yes.
As Brady continues to be out there 10 years after that.
It is, I guess it's fair in terms of the balance of karma that Peyton Manning won a Super Bowl playing that poorly. That's so much of a shell of himself, considering all the great seasons he had where he didn't even make it to the Super Bowl. If you look at his 2 Super Bowl championships, he shouldn't have been the MVP in the first one. That should have been Dominic Rhodes.
But this is why the analysis at that position is always, Stugotz is always going to win. Measuring quarterbacks by did they win, and then after they win, tearing them down is overrated, is the formula for eternal broadcasting success. For those of you who do not know, Tia-Clair Toomey is the fittest athlete in the world. She is it now 6 times, Tia? Thank you for joining us. Is it CrossFit Game Champion 6 times?
Yeah, that's correct. The title is the fittest on earth, but for people that aren't very familiar with the space, we definitely go with the CrossFit Games Champion or the fittest on earth.
Just merely the fittest on earth. And when we talk about the dominance in the sport, how far are you removed from the people behind you, and how hard is it to keep this title when young people continue to come and try and grab it from you hungrily every year?
It's really interesting. I find that with the younger generation coming into our sport, it's actually incredibly exciting because nowadays we're actually having young athletes or younger people aspiring and growing up to want to be a CrossFit Games athlete. And, for someone that has really only known about CrossFit space, for the last 10 years, I personally grew up wanting to go to the Olympics. And so, now we're hearing stories of these young athletes that are coming in and, obviously trying to threaten my title. But they're growing up aspiring to be CrossFit Games athletes. And, as someone that wants my legacy to live on forever and, I want to make an impact myself, it's actually incredibly, humbling, but also very exciting for our sport and something that, I don't take lightly because I've worked so hard over the last 10 years and, to make sure, when that time comes for me to retire, that my legacy still lives on.
Tia-Clair, that was an excellent ambassador answer. I'm not sure, though, that you answered my question of how dominant you are and how these young people can't actually get close to where you are.
Greatest of all time. She's the Michael Jordan of her sport.
She did a great job of saying, like, it's so flattering that they keep coming after me, but they also keep losing, and they lose by a lot. So explain to the audience who may not know what your whole story is, how hard it is to stay as a 6-time champion in this obsessive, compulsive insanity that is getting fitter than everyone else in the world.
You know what? While I'm out on that competition floor, there's no one that's going to beat me. How's that?
Well, I know that seems to be obvious, but can you explain for those who do not know how much distance there is between you and whoever is second place?
Well, this is a interesting question because as I like to stay humble, but I guess I go out there absolutely every time I'm out on that competition floor, and I don't want anyone to come anywhere close to threatening my title. There's been years where I have literally had the highest points ranking across both men and women, and I don't know how else to explain to you that
it's your hardest test. It's your hardest test to be humble while being this dominant. You don't have certainly the weights are not the challenge of this. You're trying to publicly be graceful about something. You're crushing everybody.
I appreciate it, Dan. I appreciate it. You definitely you're definitely challenging me here. That's for sure.
Was that a doorbell, by the way?
Yeah, I think I've got someone trying to get into the house, but they'll have to wait. Oh,
really? Feel free to answer it.
You can go do it if you want. We will talk among ourselves. We have a ton of questions because we're all lined up to ask you how it is that you're this good at this. Every time I watch the CrossFit Games, I don't know if you guys have the same feeling. I'm like, wow, I am really pathetic. I am not doing enough with my life.
She's going to answer the door,
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. That's no problem. I don't want that person to be waiting for 15 to 20 minutes. Okay, excellent.
They left. Do you ever skip leg days?
No. I don't really skip anything, to be honest. It's really interesting because, as a CrossFit athlete, we're trying to prepare ourselves for everything and anything. It's so important to, really, I guess when you look at the human body, we're trying to make sure that we are prepared for whatever they throw at us. And, when it comes to our training for CrossFit, where, no matter what it is, there's so many different fitness domains. So, I'm squatting like every single day, I'm doing something upper body every single day. And we're trying to build that foundation and build that variety within the body. So, it's not your typical gym session where, you'll do leg day on Monday, you'll do chest Tuesday, back Wednesday. There's definitely a lot more to it when it comes to training for the CrossFit Games.
So the reputation that CrossFit has, especially from people like me who don't do CrossFit, is, oh, you're going to get hurt doing that. Everybody hurts their back. It's such unnatural motions. You should not be doing that. Have you sustained major injuries doing CrossFit? Is it as unsafe as they allege?
So, that's an interesting thing. And I actually find that this day and age, when, we're not having as many comments like that. When I very first started, I had the exact same, look as you did, and it was a little daunting because, when you don't fully understand and you're not fully educated on what the sport provides, you definitely can feel a little overwhelmed with what you're asked for. But CrossFit, if you have a really good coach and you go into the gym, you go into a daily class, you should be coached absolutely every single time that you're there. And so what that will entail is creating that guidance when you're in that class, that when you're wanting to go and lift 100 pounds more than what you really should be, you have that coach there that's guiding you and explaining to you, hey, you're not meant to do it this way. You have to, start from, just the barbell, for example, and learn the movement, learn the technique. Now, when I very first started CrossFit, I had really great guidance from my local gym that I started at. But, for me, it was really interesting because I had to really make sure that, I wasn't overdoing it, and so.
Tia, there are people in the house.
There are people in the house shirtless.
People behind you.
There are people in the house. Do you know who they are? They're shirtless.
They're walking up your staircase.
Be careful. Get them out of there. Run them out of there.
I'll have to have a conversation with them after. But you know what? Truthfully, I actually did injure my back when I very first started. And, learning from that experience, I can only have myself to blame. And you know what? It was because I didn't leave my ego at the door. And, I pushed through it. I went through, I ignored it and I thought that I could push through it. And it just wasn't the right thing to do. And from that experience, I learned from it. And you know what? Had I explained or expressed that to the coach at the time, he would have been able to guide me and, remove that situation. And so, these types of things happen, obviously, when you're an elite athlete and you're trying to, challenge yourself and push yourself to those types of limits. Anything can really happen. But, I commend my team, my coaching team, my programming team, for, allowing me to be able to do what I do on a daily basis and still maintain a very healthy, schedule.
I know you said you do something every day to really work on that foundation, but I want you to paint the picture what your laziest day looks like.
Yeah.
Are we ordering a bunch of pizzas?
Yeah,
Are we
yes.
watching like 7 straight hours of Stranger Things?
Cheat day. Your worst cheat day.
You know what? I could definitely challenge you guys on a lazy day, because when it comes to rest day, man, I rest hard. And that consists of literally laying on the lounge, making sure that I am fully recovering and just, watching Netflix or Hulu. Eating as much as I can. Nutrition is really important, you don't want to just be eating, processed foods or anything.
Oh, come on, eat some processed foods. Come on.
You're competitive.
You rest hard?
Yes. Listen, I am telling you, I rest better than you do. I'm telling you right now. I'm a better rester than you are.
I think we need to have that competition, not cross.
Have you ever sat on a couch for 48 hours and watched football like I have?
How about 7 straight commercial-free hours of football? Yeah?
You don't know how to rest.
I mean, we've definitely, during Christmas time have probably come close to that, but I don't know if 48 hours straight is something that I have ever done.
But what is the junk?
Yes.
What is the processed food? You put down your sword at the feet of a better rester, Stugotz. Give us your sloppiest day.
If you have to eat processed
the worst
food.
of it. Where's the ice cream? Where's the pizza? Where's the processed food?
Oh, okay. So, I don't mind some Domino's.
Nice.
I've definitely had, my fair share of pizza. I feel like, my go-to is I'm more of a sweets person than a savory person. So definitely chocolate and, all kinds of sugars. But, they're definitely on days that I try and make sure that I'm not eating or indulging in that as much, just because of the recovery. It doesn't really allow me to recover, and the next day I show up and I'm feeling a lot worse, or I'm feeling a little inflamed, if you will.
It's not worth it.
But that's the difference. She works out the next day. We do it again.
Well, but she's also
that's
saying,
why I'm better than her.
She's also saying, yes, you're a better rester than her. But I want to get to the audience understanding, because Tia-Clair, I don't believe they understand how competitive this world is. You can only know this from inside of it. So can you answer some questions for me quickly that would explain to people how fit you are? When you say the most extreme exercise thing that I can do 100 of these, 500 of these, whatever it is, what do you point at and say, this is something that not even my competitors can do, because I am obsessive compulsive about being good at this at the extreme?
Man, I wish I could answer that quickly for you, but that's a tough one. I think it comes down to the particular workout that we're doing. So, we definitely have like little challenges of like, how many pull-ups you can do. And I'm sure there's people out there who can, do more than, say, 64 unbroken pull-ups, but doing things like 64 unbroken pull-ups. I'd challenge you guys to see how many pull-ups you can do.
We cannot do.
Thank you.
The whole room could not do 64. I don't think.
Not
the whole
accepted.
room.
Yep.
I don't think anyone. It's not accepted.
Every time I do that, I feel the onset of a hernia.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I mean, it's challenging, but you know what? We train every single day, so it's to be expected in a way.
Juju thinks he can do 64 straight pull-ups.
Okay.
No offense, salute to you, ma'am, but I would eat you for lunch on pull-ups.
Oh, wow.
No, but
Salute
it's,
to you.
it's unbroken pull-ups.
Unbroken, yeah.
You can break them, unbreak them. I will put them across your back.
I don't think you can do it,
All right,
Juju.
well, we're going to have to do this.
We need to set up a time for you to come here to Nashville and do the challenge.
We will have to send Juju out there only for the pull-up challenge.
Worth it, though,
Can you tell us what is the sickest that you feel during any point of your workout or in the games experience? Because I got to imagine at some point you're pushing through the physical feeling of nausea. I got to imagine that you're throwing up quite often.
No, not that quite often. I think when we're doing or going through our training cycles, we're gradually building. So, you're evolving throughout your training cycle. The worst I probably feel is when I've had some time off and, I'm just getting back into it. And so trying to retrain that intensity and everything, that's definitely something that, I would probably feel my most sickest. I don't believe I've ever vomited in a workout before, so I don't know if I've just not pushed it that hard. But there's definitely times where it's really hot, and I think that definitely plays a really big contributor to how you're feeling as well.
What do you regard, though, as the thing on your resume that you can do physically that represents to you beyond the titles, right? Because it's an overall fitness, I understand, but where your strengths reside are where? Where are the advantages that you have over everyone else in your field?
Everything.
Every single exercise. See, there you go.
That's how you do it.
That's how you do it without the
That's how
humility
you talk
right
trash.
there. So you're saying there's nothing you hate to do. There's nothing you don't hate leg day. There's nothing that you hate to go in the gym and do.
Nothing. Yeah, bring it to me. I'm up for any challenge. I love it.
Do you find that this world is filled, because it has to be obsessive to be good at it? Do you find that the world of fitness is filled with body dysmorphia?
What?
I don't even really know how to answer that one. I think people don't understand some of the things that we do, and because of that, because of not being educated on it, maybe that is caused to the general population having certain opinions. I don't know if I've just answered your question, but yeah, I've never really thought of that question.
The reason I'm asking the question is because I have assumed that whenever you're pouring yourself into something physically the way that this is, because it's not just athletics or sport, it's also just the cultivating of the body. And there are so many, you guys are making so many others feel bad about their body that I assume that the obsessive pursuit of body perfection can also all around you lead to all sorts of mental frailties. I would just imagine in any workplace like this.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, I think you make a good point. But I think that, yeah, you kind of got me stumped a little bit.
Same here.
It's interesting. Pardon?
He says
Same,
says same
I didn't
here.
understand the
He
question.
didn't understand the question, but he doesn't know what dysmorphia is.
Right. That.
Yeah, no, I think that people think that it's impossible, and at the end of the day, I guess it comes back down to, each individual and like what they want to achieve and, how they want to live their life and everything. And, I guess to some degree, my husband, he always, says, oh, well, my fittest is always below Tia's unfitness. And so I guess there is probably a little bit of that, but I don't really ever look at it like that, because I think I always try and encourage or welcome the people around me to, I guess, live their life the way they want to live it.
Can you take us through just your most extreme workout day? How long is it? Take us through just step by step, how much of what you're doing on the day that is most rigorous?
So we've done like 14-hour days leading into the CrossFit Games, and that consists of doing a long endurance run in the morning. It consists of going to the pool and doing some swimming. It consists of about an 8-hour day at the gym, and that consists of doing all kinds of strength work, squatting, pressing, doing a lot of pulling, a lot of conditioning pieces. The best way to kind of describe our training is, you think of all kinds of different sports, and we're dabbling in that, and we're trying to do it. We're trying to get better at it and build that fitness. So they're long days.
What is your caloric intake daily?
Well, it really depends, but I'm more of a smaller athlete, so I only really have to try and make sure I'm eating around the 2,500 to 3,000 calorie mark.
That's light work.
Me too.
I can't believe it's that low. I can't believe
That's a morning
that
for
you're
me.
spending 14 hours in the gym. You're clearly burning more than you're eating there.
Yeah. It's definitely a lot smaller than what people think, but I'm also quite a small athlete as well.
Does anyone have an enviable body fat percentage to you, or are you at what is your ideal? And do you just notice the perfections, or are the imperfections, whatever they are, if there are any, maddening to you?
I don't think, well, for me personally, I definitely don't worry about, my body fat percentage or anything like that. If anything, I'm trying to make sure that I have like, a bit of fat on me, if that makes sense. It is hard because, especially leading in the CrossFit Games, I am very lean just with the amount of training that I'm actually doing. But, there are some athletes that, you know, I find are too small. But again, you know, it really comes down to the athlete itself. They're probably just a naturally small person, which then complements their gymnastics and their body weight movements. And then you got your bigger athletes that, you know, really do perform well in more of the odd object or, you know, the heavy strength movements. So for me, I actually like to compete around, you know, 140 pounds. And that allows me to move weight efficiently, but also perform body weight movements efficiently as well.
Tia-Clair, thank you. Congratulations on your dominance. Congratulations on having not a single weakness. Stugotz likes to ask this question.
I do, yeah. I'm wondering how long, in a crazy hypothetical scenario, if I was bothering you and you needed to kill me, how long would it take you, Tia, to kill me?
It depends on which way you want to go about it.
Whichever way you prefer, the quickest way.
Beaten to death by barbells.
Yes.
I've got you in a minute.
You could just run around the block once. You can challenge him to a race around the block, and I'm pretty sure that would
We
do
are
it.
sending Juju to Nashville to take on
more than a
this
minute,
push-up or this pull-up challenge with you. Tia, thank you for being on with
1
us.
minute.
Tia-Clair Toomey, the most dominant, fittest person in the world.
Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you.
Thank you.